There is something they never handed you. From the very first breath you drew on this earth, someone else was already writing your script. They handed you a map of a world that was solid, a life where luck was random, and a destiny controlled by forces you could never reach. They trained you to memorize facts, to follow systems, and to stay afraid of what you didn't understand. But not once, not a single time, did anyone sit you down and say, "Here is how your own mind actually operates. Here is how reality bends. Here is the instruction manual for your own existence." Have you ever felt it? In those rare moments of complete stillness, in the silence between thoughts, have you ever sensed that something is off? That persistent inner signal, like a splinter buried just beneath the surface of your awareness, quietly whispering that the world is not quite what it appears to be. You are not imagining it. That signal is not anxiety. That signal is your soul trying to remember something it was compelled to forget. Here is the question that has haunted genuine thinkers throughout all of recorded history. Why do certain men and women seem to move through life with an almost supernatural ease, accumulating fortunes, drawing in love, radiating vitality, as if some invisible current is carrying them forward, while the overwhelming majority of human beings strain, grind, and bleed just to survive another week? It is not coincidence. It is not their bloodline, and it is absolutely not luck. The distance between those two groups comes from one source: knowledge. A very specific, very ancient, very deliberately obscured kind of knowledge. For thousands of years, this wisdom was protected like a state secret. In the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, in the philosophical academies of Greece, in the Hermetic brotherhoods of Renaissance Europe, the understanding of how reality actually operates was encoded in riddles, buried in allegory, and shielded behind initiations that could consume a lifetime. Some say it was protected to preserve its sanctity. Others, and they are almost certainly closer to the truth, recognize that it was suppressed because a human being who genuinely grasps how the universe functions becomes impossible to govern. Such a person becomes sovereign. Such a person becomes a true architect of their own circumstances. But the era of concealment is finished. If you are here right now, listening to this voice at MindRise Audiobooks, that is not an accident of an algorithm. In the architecture of the mind, accidents simply do not exist. There are only appointments, moments the deeper self has already scheduled. Something in you recognized that today was the day. You are here because a part of you has been ready for this for a long time. What follows is not a motivational speech. It is not a collection of pleasant ideas designed to make you feel temporarily inspired before you drift back into the same patterns. What you are about to receive is a map, a structural map of how reality is constructed and how you have been unknowingly constructing yours all along. We are going to move through 12 laws, immutable, ancient, and as real as gravity. They are operating in the background of your existence right now, this very second, whether or not you are conscious of them. Ignore gravity and step off a ledge. The fall is not negotiable. These laws work the same way. Ignore them and your life contracts, financially, emotionally, in every dimension that carries meaning. Understand them Align with them, and you stop being a passenger. You become the architect. Most people are familiar with one of these laws, perhaps two. But navigating existence with a single law is like trying to pilot an aircraft using only one instrument. You need the complete system. You need every gauge on the panel. So let the outside noise go. What you are about to hear has the power to dismantle the limited version of you and give rise to who you have always genuinely been. Welcome to MindRise Audiobooks. These are the 12 keys they concealed from you. The first key, the law of mentalism. This is the origin point, the alpha, the ground from which everything else rises. If you were to forget every other principle in this entire experience, but you genuinely absorbed and lived this one law into the fabric of how you think and move through the world, you would become unstoppable. Every law that follows is simply a child of this first great mother law, a branch from a single root. It is the principle that the ancient sage Hermes Trismegistus inscribed onto what became known as the Emerald Tablet. It is the truth that Jesus communicated through parables that most listeners mistook for simple stories. It is the conclusion that the most adventurous edge of modern physics keeps circling without fully landing on. The law of mentalism. Its core statement is brief, but the implications reach into every corner of your existence. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Do not let those words slide past you like another motivational phrase. Let them press against the walls of what you think you know. Because what that statement genuinely means, structurally means, is that matter as you perceive it does not exist the way you have been trained to accept. The chair beneath you, the walls surrounding you, the weight of your own body, the mountains, the oceans, the stars visible on a clear night, none of these are the solid, independent objects your five senses have spent a lifetime convincing you they are. They are condensed thought. They are mental energy that has slowed its frequency to the point where your biological instruments, your eyes, your hands, your ears, can register it as physical substance. We live inside the deepest illusion ever constructed, the illusion of pure objectivity. The conventional story goes like this. There is a world out there, hard and real and indifferent to you, and you are a small, fragile creature in here, sealed inside your skull, doing your best to survive against that world's relentless demands. The law of mentalism does not slightly adjust that story. It inverts it entirely. You are not inside the world. The world is inside you. The universe is not a container packed with separate objects. It is a boundless ocean of consciousness, and you are one of its focal points, a location where mind experiences itself. To understand this without losing your footing, use the cinema as your model. You are seated in a darkened theater. On the screen, a scene of struggle and scarcity is playing. You find it unbearable. So you walk up to the screen and begin shouting at the characters. You try sticking money onto the surface to fix what you see depicted there. Does anything shift? Not a single frame. The screen is a receptor. It receives. It displays. It is the effect, never the cause. To change what is showing, you walk to the projection booth, remove the current reel, and load a different one. In your life, you have been standing at the screen, fighting reflections, negotiating with shadows, rearranging the furniture of your outer circumstances. The law of mentalism hands you the key to the projection booth. Your conscious awareness is the lens. Your subconscious is the lamp, the raw source of illumination. Your beliefs, your habitual thought patterns, your dominant emotional states, those are the real. The physical world, everything you call your reality, is the screen. It is the mental residue of what has already moved through the projector. If your financial life feels contracted right now, it is because somewhere in the past, months or years back, a particular reel was loaded. A story that said, "I am not enough. Abundance belongs to other people. Money is something I will always be reaching for." And physical reality, which always arrives with a delay, is only now finishing its projection of that old film. What you observe today is what you thought yesterday. This means that directing your anxiety at your current circumstances is not only futile, it actively reinforces the old reel. Your current circumstances are history. They are echo. If you want to reshape what comes next, you redirect your focus away from the screen, away from the evidence of old thinking, and you load new film right now. Your analytical mind will push back here. It will say, if I strike the table, that impact is real. So let us talk about physics. When quantum researchers first dismantled the atom to locate what matter is ultimately composed of, they expected solid, reliable particles of substance. What they found was almost nothing. Empty space, vibrating fields of energy, and then the finding that genuinely unsettled the foundations of materialist science. At the subatomic level, particles do not have a fixed location or a defined form until the moment they are observed or measured. In the well-known double-slit experiment, a particle behaves as a wave of distributed possibility when no measurement is being made, and collapses into a locatable particle when observation occurs. This result has been replicated consistently. Physicists continue to debate its broader philosophical implications for macro-level experience. What is established is the finding itself. Observation influences the behavior of matter at the foundational level. Hermetic philosophy has employed this as a guiding metaphor for thousands of years, that focused, intentional awareness participates in shaping experienced reality. Your attention does not merely witness what unfolds, it co-creates the conditions in which things unfold. Every morning, when you wake and your conditioned observer steps in, remembering your name, your debts, your history, your limitations, you are collapsing a field of genuine possibility back into the same familiar form. You are rebuilding yesterday with the machinery of your perception. The law of mentalism invites something radical. Stop saturating your observation with what you do not want. Stop confirming the reality of contraction by giving it your sustained, emotionally charged attention. Begin instead to observe, in imagination, in deliberate inner rehearsal, the reality you intend to inhabit. Bring that image into your awareness with the same vividness and emotional charge you currently give to your fears, and allow the law to do what it is designed to do. Here is where it becomes demanding. If the all is mind, and you are the operator of your mind, then the narrative of being purely a victim of external forces becomes structurally unsustainable. That statement is not here to wound, but it must be spoken clearly. You are not at the mercy of your employer, the global economy, your family history, or your biology alone. You are living with the accumulated output of your own mental and emotional programming, much of it installed long before you were old enough to choose differently, but yours to examine and consciously revise from this point forward. The difficult recognition is that your current reality reflects the cumulative quality of your inner life over time. The genuinely liberating recognition, and it is liberating once the initial resistance settles, is that if you have been shaping it without knowing it, you can now shape it deliberately. How does the mind actually generate outcomes? Positive thinking in isolation is not the full mechanism. The law works through a specific combination: thought, which carries an electric quality, combined with emotion, which carries a magnetic quality. Together, they produce electromagnetic creation. A thought without emotional charge is a blueprint that never gets handed to the builders. The thought defines the shape. The emotion is the animating force that sends the shape into motion. Most people apply this formula without any awareness of it, and they apply it most powerfully in the direction of their fears. They entertain a thought of catastrophe and flood it with intense dread. That combination is an extraordinarily potent creative act, one of the most effective they ever perform. Mastery of the law of mentalism begins with recognizing this mechanism and learning to apply it deliberately in the direction of your chosen intentions. You may wonder, if this operates as described, why does the result not arrive immediately? Because the physical plane is dense. Between mental cause and visible manifestation, there is a gestation period, just as there is between a planted seed and a mature harvest. The difficulty is that most people abort the process before completion. They plant the mental seed of abundance on a Monday. Wednesday arrives, the bank balance is unchanged, frustration rises, and they declare the whole thing a failure. In that declaration, they have not only abandoned the original seed, they have planted a new one, labeled "This does not work." Mental persistence is not blind stubbornness. It is an understanding of how gestation operates. It means remaining loyal to your inner vision while the outer world is still displaying the old pattern. That loyalty is what most traditions have called faith. Not faith in an external authority, but fidelity to your own genuinely developing mental creation. Within your mind, two distinct forces are at work. The conscious mind, your analytical, choosing, directing awareness, and the subconscious, your vast, automated, immensely powerful creative engine. The conscious is the captain. The subconscious is the entire crew and all of the machinery. The captain does not need to comprehend every system below decks. The captain's role is to establish the course with clarity and maintain it. The crew's role is to execute. The challenge for most human beings is that their captain is operating in a state of perpetual anxiety, issuing fearful orders, contradicting yesterday's command with today's panic, declaring the voyage lost before it has fairly begun. And the crew, which cannot exercise independent judgment, follows the orders it receives. The law of mentalism teaches you to become a clear, settled, confident captain. Your role is not to engineer the how. Your role is to hold the destination with steady certainty. The how belongs to the vast intelligence that moves through you and through the universe around you. The second key, the law of correspondence. If the first law established that you are the creator, this second law reveals with exacting precision how that creation manifests in physical form. And I want to be direct with you. The law of correspondence is the one most likely to disrupt whatever comfortable story of victimhood you may still be carrying. It removes the logic of complaint. It dissolves excuses the way a strong solvent dissolves residue. It is the law of the perfect mirror. Hermes Trismegistus recorded it in a phrase that has moved unchanged through thousands of years of human civilization. As above, so below. As within, so without. These words have been repeated so frequently they have nearly become decorative. They are, in reality, a complete engineering schematic for existence. They mean that your outer experience, without, is a precise correspondent of what is occurring in your inner world, within. Not an approximate reflection, a precise one. Picture this. You compose a document on your computer. The document contains errors, wrong data, contradictions, information that undermines its own purpose. You press print. The printer produces a paper version of exactly what the digital file contained. The errors appear on the page. You take an eraser to the paper. You scratch at the surface. Then you print again. The same document emerges. You invest in a higher quality printer, better paper. Print again. The identical errors appear, now on premium paper. This is the pattern of most human lives. They are working on the printout, the external circumstances, while the source file in the mind remains unchanged. The law of correspondence states with complete clarity, the outer world has no independent agenda. It has no separate will. It does one thing only. It corresponds. If your financial life is disordered, there is a corresponding disorder in your inner conviction about value, worthiness, and what you are permitted to receive. If your relationships follow the same painful arc regardless of who the other person is, there is a corresponding inner pattern around trust, abandonment, or self-perception. The external condition is not the problem. It is the reporting system for the internal condition. And this means your energy is not best spent fighting circumstances. It is best directed at transforming the source. Your body is the most immediate and intimate portion of your outer world. It is the physical structure most directly shaped by your inner life over time. Sustained emotional states, chronic stress patterns, and habitual inner dialogue all leave measurable signatures in your biological systems. The field of psychoneuroimmunology, which studies the relationship between psychological experience and physical health, has documented connections between long-term emotional patterns and physiological function.
This is not a claim that every physical condition is solely a mindset issue requiring only a change of thought. The body is genuinely complex. Professional medical guidance is valuable and important, and responsible physical care is intelligent. But the quality of your inner dialogue is not a neutral factor. It participates in the conditions your body experiences over time. The law of correspondence gives you a form of reverse engineering that most people never apply.
You do not need decades of analysis to understand your limiting beliefs. Your life pattern tells you directly. Are you perpetually overlooked despite consistent effort? There is a corresponding inner conviction about your own worth. Does money arrive and then dissolve within days regardless of the amount? There is a corresponding inner story about your right to accumulate and hold abundance. Does a particular type of relationship conflict keep appearing regardless of who the other person is? There is a corresponding inner pattern writing the script. Your outer life is not a random sequence of events. It is an autobiography authored by your subconscious, and every chapter tells you exactly where your inner work is needed. The law also carries a dimension of extraordinary possibility. If the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm, if you contain within you the same intelligence that organizes the stars, then infinite creative capacity is not something external to you that must be appealed to. It is encoded in the very structure of what you are. When you genuinely absorb this, the posture of supplication becomes unnecessary. You approach your life as someone who carries genuine authority over their own domain. The third key, the law of vibration. Nikola Tesla, whose understanding of energy remains decades ahead of what mainstream science has fully integrated, left a single guiding instruction for those willing to follow the thread. He said, "If you want to discover the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Not luck, not effort alone, not inherited advantage. Vibration." We have arrived at the third great law, the one that bridges thought and physical form and permanently dissolves the illusion of stillness. The law of vibration declares, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Hold your hand before you. It looks stable, solid. Strike a hard surface. The impact feels unambiguous, and yet every physical reality you experience is a theater of extraordinary, ceaseless motion. At the atomic level, your hand is composed of particles in constant, rapid movement, separated by enormous relative distances of space. Space that is not empty, but filled with vibrating energetic fields. More than 99% of what you experience as your solid physical body is, at its foundation, organized, moving energy. You are not a fixed, solid structure. You are an orchestra of frequencies playing a particular composition. The reason your hand does not pass through a table is not because both are solid objects. It is because the frequency at which your atomic structure vibrates produces a field that repels the field of the table. Matter is not substance pressing against substance. It is energy interacting with energy based on frequency, resonance, and repulsion. Why does this law shape the direction of your life? Because if everything is vibration, then the difference between any two states of experience is fundamentally a difference of frequency. The difference between ice and steam is not chemical, it is vibratory. Introduce more energetic motion and ice flows, then rises as vapor. The same transformation is available in your experience. The difference between contraction and expansion in your circumstances is a matter of frequency. If you can shift the rate at which your mental and emotional energy vibrates, you shift the entire quality of what your life generates and attracts. Consider the radio as your model. Right now, in the space surrounding you, signals from hundreds of broadcast sources are moving through. You cannot hear any of them, not because they are absent, but because your receiver is not tuned to those frequencies. Your nervous system, your brain, and your heart functions as the most sophisticated transmitter and receiver in the known universe. It broadcasts continuously into the field around you. That signal is your vibratory frequency. It is composed of the combination of your habitual thought patterns and your predominant emotional states. If your signal broadcasts at the frequency of fear, the contracted, dense, slow-moving energy of chronic worry and anxiety, you are tuned to a particular station. That station plays a particular kind of programming. It amplifies evidence of scarcity, of threat, of circumstances and people that match its frequency. You may insist that you do not want this programming, but as long as the dial remains where it is, the content does not change. The law does not evaluate your preferences. It reads your signal and delivers what matches. To receive different programming, you do not argue with the radio. You move the dial. You shift the frequency of your signal, your sustained emotional and mental state, and the programming changes. Not because the alternative content appeared from nowhere. It was always present, always broadcasting. You have simply developed the capacity to receive it. Dr. David Hawkins developed what he called a map of consciousness, a calibrated scale of human emotional states arranged by relative energetic frequency. At the lower registers, shame, guilt, apathy, grief, and fear, these are the densest, slowest moving emotional states, energetically contracted, consuming more vitality than they generate. Moving upward, anger, which carries more energy than apathy. Then courage, the critical threshold where a person begins generating more energy than they consume. Higher still, acceptance, reason, and at the elevated ranges, love, joy, and peace. These upper states feel spacious and light because they genuinely are, energetically fast, expansive, generative. The principle that changes everything when truly understood. A high-frequency state does not simply coexist alongside a low-frequency state. It dissolves it. Light does not fight darkness. It simply occupies the space darkness was filling. A person vibrating consistently in love and genuine peace is not merely unaffected by lower frequency influences around them. They actively transmute them. Physics describes this through sympathetic resonance. Strike a note on one instrument, and the corresponding string on another instrument in the same room begins to vibrate without being touched. Energy at one frequency activates matching frequencies across space. You are continuously activating elements in your environment that correspond to what you are currently transmitting. The quality of your signal determines the quality of what answers. Raising your vibration is not an indulgence or an optional lifestyle choice. It is your primary operational responsibility. Physical movement is one of the most immediate available pathways. Emotion is energy in motion, and when that energy stagnates, it produces the experience of being pressed down. The quality of what you allow into your awareness through what you read, watch, hear, and spend time discussing constitutes your vibratory diet. The language you habitually use in both thought and speech either reinforces existing low-frequency patterns or begins the process of elevation. One essential clarification: raising your vibration does not mean performing contentment. Forced positivity, the insistence on appearing fine while experiencing genuine pain, is not high vibration. It is suppression, and suppression locks low-frequency energy inside the body rather than allowing it to complete its natural cycle. If you are in genuine pain, the path of mastery is not denial. It is to allow yourself to feel the emotion fully and consciously, without identifying with it as a permanent definition of who you are. To feel it completely and release it. To let it move through you rather than taking up residence. That is the alchemical work that the law of vibration makes genuinely available. And your emotional state, moment to moment, is your most precise and honest guidance system, telling you with complete accuracy what frequency you are currently broadcasting, and therefore what you are currently drawing toward you. The fourth key: the law of polarity. If you have ever wondered how the greatest figures in human history maintained their composure in the middle of total catastrophe, how they converted their most devastating losses into the raw material of their most extraordinary achievements, the answer lives in this fourth law. It was not stoicism. It was not performance. It was not the manufactured display of strength for an watching audience. It was something far more precise and far more actionable. It was mastery of the law of polarity. And once you truly grasp its mechanics, you will never look at your suffering, your failures, or your darkest seasons the same way again. Hermes Trismegistus articulated it this way: everything is dual. Everything has two poles. Everything has its corresponding pair. Things that appear to be opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. This is the foundation of all mental alchemy. The ancient practitioners who called themselves alchemists were not primarily chasing the conversion of physical lead into physical gold, though that image served as a useful veil for their actual work. Their true labor was the transmutation of lead-like human emotional states, fear, hatred, poverty consciousness, despair, into gold-like ones, courage, love, abundant awareness, unshakable resolve. And the law of polarity is the instrument through which that transmutation becomes possible. Here is the truth that dismantles the standard story. Opposites are not enemies locked in eternal conflict. They are not two separate warring forces from different universes. They are the two ends of a single, unbroken continuum.
You have been taught that fear and courage are fundamentally different things, that poverty and wealth occupy entirely separate categories, that darkness and light are adversaries. The law reveals something else entirely. These are simply different positions on the same scale.
Different degrees of the same underlying quality. And if they are different degrees of the same quality, not different substances, then moving from one end toward the other becomes not only possible, but natural. Use a thermometer as your working model. Look at the temperature scale. Can you identify with scientific precision the exact point where cold ends and heat begins? Is it at 0 degrees? At 10? At 20? An individual raised in Arctic conditions experiences 15 degrees as pleasant warmth. A person living near the equator experiences 15 degrees as dangerous cold. The labels heat and cold are not absolute categories existing in independent reality. They are experiential names for different positions on a single continuum. Cold is not a separate substance you can extract from a room with a shovel. You cannot remove cold. What you can do is introduce heat. As you raise the thermal frequency, the experience of cold, which was always simply a lower position on the same scale, dissolves without a fight. You did not destroy it. You elevated it past the point where it could sustain itself. Now carry this precise logic into your inner life. Fear and courage are not opposites in the way a stone wall and an open window are different things. They are the same energy, the energy of expectation regarding the future, vibrating at different positions on the same scale. Fear is the expectation that something will collapse, that the outcome will be damaging, that you do not have the capacity to navigate what arrives. Courage, more accurately described as faith, is the expectation that things will unfold workably, or that you possess the internal resources to handle what comes. Since they are the same fundamental energy, you cannot transmute fear into something unrelated, but you can slide it along the scale it already occupies toward the opposite pole. You do not need to eliminate fear. You need to elevate it. You take the exact same energy and move it up the dial. The same principle governs the relationship between love and hatred. Modern psychology has consistently observed that intense hatred and intense love share far more psychological and neurological architecture than either one shares with indifference. The transition between them can happen with startling speed. Anyone who has moved through an intense personal relationship knows this viscerally. A single exchange can shift the emotional register dramatically in either direction. This happens because love and hatred are poles of the same fundamental energetic circuit. They are both forms of passionate, charged engagement. The genuine opposite of love is not hatred. The genuine opposite of both love and hatred is indifference, the complete absence of charge, the extinction of the fire. Where indifference lives, there is no material for alchemy. The flame has gone out entirely. But where fire still burns, even as hatred, even as fury, the alchemist has something to work with, something to redirect. This is a transformative reframe for anyone sitting in the middle of circumstances that feel irredeemably negative. If you feel an intense rage at your current situation, at the financial contraction, the stalled relationship, the professional ceiling that seems immovable, do not interpret that intensity as the problem. That intensity is energy. That fury, that burning refusal to accept things as they are, is raw alchemical fuel. It is lead waiting for the process. If you can take that same charge and, through the deliberate act of polarization, begin to redirect it toward the opposite end of the scale, you suddenly have an extraordinary propellant. The exact same force that was burning you becomes the energy that moves you. The comfortable and the apathetic, the ones settled into mediocre sufficiency, these are the ones who have the least alchemical material to work with. The person in genuine, acute pain has something the comfortably numb person often lacks entirely: sufficient voltage to generate real momentum. So how does the actual alchemy happen in practice? The technique is called polarization, the deliberate act of redirecting your mental focus along the scale from its current negative position toward the positive pole of the same situation. The alchemist does not deny the negative pole, does not pretend the problem is absent, does not manufacture hollow optimism. Instead, they apply a structural understanding. If I am currently experiencing the negative pole of a given situation, by immutable law, the positive pole of that exact situation must exist at the other end of the same rod. A stick that has only one end cannot exist in this universe. If you are holding the end of the stick labeled debt, you are simultaneously, whether or not you can feel it, holding the stick that also contains the end labeled financial breakthrough. They are the same stick. They have never been separate. Your practical work is not to eliminate the negative pole. Your work is to shift your attention incrementally but deliberately toward the positive. You begin searching for evidence of the positive pole. You begin generating thoughts and emotional states associated with the far end of the scale. As you do this, you are performing the same operation the thermometer performs when heat is introduced into a cold room. The low position on the scale does not need to be fought. It simply becomes the previous condition as the frequency rises. Every genuine problem contains the architecture of its own resolution. This is not a poetic comfort designed to make difficulty bearable. It is a statement of how polarity structurally operates. A question cannot exist without the answer simultaneously existing at the opposite end of the same continuum. A problem cannot manifest without the solution occupying the other pole. If the problem has appeared in your experience by the mechanics of this law, the resolution appeared with it. They were born together. They always are. You are looking at one end of the scale. The other end is already there. Turn your attention and look for it. There is a particular and underappreciated advantage available to someone who has genuinely hit rock bottom. When the pendulum of experience has swung to its maximum negative extreme, it has exhausted the distance it can travel in that direction. Its only available movement from that precise point is toward the positive pole. People who inhabit the murky middle zone, neither genuinely suffering nor genuinely thriving, often remain suspended there for extended periods because they have no polar tension driving them. But the person who has crashed completely, who stands at the true negative extreme of their situation, possesses something extraordinary: maximum potential energy, a fully compressed spring, a pendulum at its limit. From that position, the law of polarity offers the most efficient possible launch toward the opposite end. Bless the bottom. It is not the destination. It is the launch pad. The fifth key, the law of rhythm. Place your hand on your chest right now. Feel the beat, and then the pause. The beat and the pause. Follow your breath. You draw it in, you release it. You cannot sustain the inhale indefinitely. You must release to receive again. Observe the sky across seasons. Light expands and then retreats. Tides fill and then recede. Everything alive breathes in cycles. Welcome to the fifth great law, the one governing time, history, markets, relationships, and the oscillating patterns of your inner life. The law of rhythm. Its declaration is this: everything flows outward and returns. Everything rises and retreats. Everything moves like a pendulum. The measure of the swing to one side is the measure of the return swing to the other. Rhythm is compensation. We inhabit a pulsating universe where nothing maintains a single, unchanging state indefinitely. The modern belief in perpetual linear upward growth, in finances, in motivation, in relational intensity, is a fiction that generates immense and entirely unnecessary suffering. We suffer when joy naturally cycles into a quieter period, because we decided joy should be permanent. We suffer when creative energy ebbs, because we decided it should remain constantly high. We suffer when the winter of our experience arrives, because we have forgotten that winter is not failure. Winter is preparation. It is the necessary interior work before spring. This law is not here to discourage you. It is here to set you free. When you understand rhythm at its deepest level, you stop throwing yourself against the tide. You develop instead the orientation of the skilled ocean surfer, someone who does not mourn when a wave recedes, but uses that receding motion to position for the next rise. The surfer who understands the ocean never mistakes the trough for permanent defeat. They know with absolute certainty that the trough is the wave gathering itself. The pendulum image clarifies the mechanics precisely. If you push a swing far in one direction toward the experience of intense success, euphoria, rapid expansion, the physics of the system require that it return with proportional force in the opposite direction. The measure of one swing equals the measure of the return. This is the principle of compensation. Nature relentlessly seeks the balance point, the center of gravity. If you move dramatically from center in one direction, the corrective pull toward the other side is proportionally powerful. This explains patterns that frustrate and confuse so many intelligent, hard-working people. Windfalls rapidly followed by equivalent losses. Intense romantic connections that generate proportionally intense conflict. Businesses that accelerate rapidly and then contract just as sharply. The system is correcting itself. The pendulum is completing its arc. The Hermetic understanding of this is not pessimistic. It is strategically liberating. The master does not chase extreme peaks of euphoria because they understand what the law guarantees will follow. The master cultivates something far more valuable and far more durable, a stable, centered state of consistent inner peace. The peace of the center is not the poverty of mediocrity. It is the intelligence of someone who has learned to stop being thrown against the walls by a swinging pendulum. Every scale of your life operates in cycles. Your energy across the hours of a single day, your creative capacity across the seasons of a year, your confidence across the arc of a project, your business revenue across quarters. Nations rise and decline across centuries. None of these are random fluctuations. They are patterned, rhythmic, and, to the person who takes the time to observe and map their own particular cycles, genuinely navigable. You can learn your rhythm and work with it rather than fighting it at every turn. If you are a professional or an entrepreneur, this law is your most underutilized strategic resource. Markets move by rhythm. Expansion cycles, periods of confidence, growth, and capital flow give way to contraction cycles with the same reliability that summer gives way to winter. The majority of market participants respond identically regardless of which phase is operating. Euphoric during expansion, convinced the upswing is permanent, extending risk. Panicked during contraction, convinced the downswing is permanent, abandoning positions at the worst possible moment. Warren Buffett's formulation captures the Hermetic alternative with elegant precision. Become cautious when others are greedy, and become willing when others are fearful. This is not clever contrarianism for its own sake. It is the direct application of the law of rhythm. The one who saves and strengthens during expansion has the resources to act decisively during contraction when opportunities present themselves at their most favorable conditions. If your output or your results are in a low cycle right now, the question is not whether the cycle will turn. By law, it will. The question is what you do with the low cycle while it is present. The one who wastes the winter mourning the cold arrives at spring depleted and unprepared. The one who uses the winter deliberately, resting, sharpening tools, reviewing foundations, strengthening the inner structure, arrives at spring with everything positioned to move. The low cycle is a gift to the person intelligent enough to receive it as such. Now the most important dimension of this entire law, the secret of neutralization. The Hermetic masters who understood rhythm most deeply discovered that it is possible to rise above the pendulum rather than being carried by it at ground level. They called this neutralization. The principle: the pendulum swings in the lower plane, the plane of automatic emotional reaction, of unconscious identification with circumstance. Living entirely in that plane, the pendulum strikes you and carries you with it, up and then down, without your choosing either direction. But there is access to a higher plane, the plane of conscious, deliberate response. If you raise your awareness to that higher plane, the pendulum continues its arc below you. Events continue unfolding. Markets cycle. People move through their emotional seasons. But you are not in the path of the swing. You observe it. You are not defined by it. What this looks like in practice. When you feel the beginning of a downswing, when heaviness arrives without clear cause, when circumstances begin to tighten, when the familiar contraction signals the approach of a low cycle, the automatic response is to follow the feeling down into identification with it, to become the sadness, to become the fear. Neutralization requires something different. Before the identification happens, you recognize the pattern. You see the rhythm arriving, and from conscious choice, not from denial, you maintain your chosen inner state. You let the wave move beneath you rather than through you. This is not suppression. Suppression would mean refusing to acknowledge the wave at all. Neutralization is fully acknowledging the wave and declining to be redefined by it. There is an ancient story about King Solomon who sought a single phrase that would be universally applicable, one that would protect a person from being crushed by misfortune and simultaneously protect them from losing judgment in moments of extraordinary success. His advisors returned with 4 words: "This too shall pass." That is the law of rhythm compressed to its irreducible essence. At the peak, this too shall pass, so remain grounded and prepare. In the depths, this too shall pass, so maintain your course and trust the cycle. Nothing is permanent. To grasp at any single condition is to try to hold a river in your bare hands. The 6th key, the law of cause and effect. If the previous laws have shown you the structure of reality, this 6th law shows you how to govern it. This is the law that permanently removes the word chance from your operational vocabulary. It is the law that places every human being in genuine responsibility for their own experience, not as condemnation, but as the most radical and complete form of empowerment available to a human being. The 6th Hermetic principle declares, every cause has its corresponding effect. Every effect has its corresponding cause. Everything unfolds according to law. What most people call chance is simply a name for causes whose operation they have not yet recognized. Nothing escapes the law. Read that carefully. Nothing escapes the law. There is no genuine accident in a universe structured by causality. There is no supernatural fortune disconnected from natural processes. Good luck and bad luck are not independent forces operating outside the causal chain. We inhabit a cosmos, which means, literally, an ordered system, not a chaos. If a single event in the universe were genuinely random, a true effect without a preceding cause, the mathematical coherence underlying all science, all engineering, all consistent human knowledge would collapse. The fact that consistent patterns exist at all confirms that causality is universal. Every condition in your life, every single one, has a corresponding cause, which means that every condition you wish to change has specific, identifiable causes that can be examined and redirected. This law is the hardest to receive because it removes the shelter of the external explanation. It makes the story of things simply happening to me structurally difficult to maintain. But simultaneously, it is the most genuinely empowering principle available to a human being. If nothing is accidental, then nothing is arbitrary. And if nothing is arbitrary, then everything can be intentionally caused. You are not guessing at your future. You are building it, consciously or by default. The difference between the person whose life seems to flow with coherence and the person perpetually managing crises is not different fortune. It is different causation. Begin with the dismantling of luck as a concept. When you observe someone achieve what appears to be a sudden breakthrough, a business that ignites, a relationship that transforms everything, an opportunity that arrives at precisely the right moment, it is natural to label it luck. The observer of causes sees differently. That visible moment of success is the effect of a chain of causes set in motion months or years before anyone was watching. Preparation completed in private. A mindset maintained through long periods when no evidence supported it. Relationships cultivated without expectation of return. Skills developed with consistency. Beliefs examined and refined. When those causes converged at a particular moment, the effect observers witnessed appeared sudden. It was not sudden. It was the harvest of invisible sowing. Your current life, in its entirety, is the harvest of causes you have been setting in motion. The beautiful parts and the painful parts alike. This is not a statement designed to create guilt. Guilt serves no causal function. It is a statement designed to hand you something far more valuable. Agency. If your current conditions are effects of causes you have been generating, many of them unconsciously, many of them inherited from environments and conditioning you did not choose, then you have the capacity to generate different causes starting immediately. You do not have to wait for external conditions to change. You change the causes, and the effects must follow. In the Eastern traditions, this law is called karma, a word that the Western world has distorted into a concept of divine reward and punishment, of a celestial scorekeeper marking good and bad behavior. That interpretation misses the actual mechanics entirely. Karma is not moral. Karma is mechanical. It operates exactly as electricity operates. If you make contact with an exposed live wire, the consequence follows, not because electricity has judged you unworthy, not because the universe is delivering punishment, but because cause and effect are operating precisely as they always do. The universe is a system of mirrors and echoes. What you send out returns, not because someone is maintaining a ledger, but because energy moves in patterns. It circles. What you project in thought, in emotional charge, in consistent action and intention creates waves in the field, and those waves return to their source. Here is the practical key to working with this law rather than simply being subject to it. Most people attempt to alter effects through physical causes alone. No money? Work more hours. Poor health? Change the diet. Damaged relationship? Change the behavior. These are valid approaches, and they do produce results. But they operate at the level of secondary causes. The primary causes are mental. Everything that exists in the physical world existed first as a thought, in someone's mind, as an idea, as an intention, as a belief. The chair you are sitting on was a thought before it was furniture. The financial structure of your life was a belief before it was a bank balance. If you want to change the effects of your life at a foundational level, you work on the primary causes, the beliefs, the self-concept, the dominant emotional tone, the quality of thought you sustain most consistently. There is a feature of this law that confuses and even embittered many thoughtful people: the time lag. If the law is precise, why do harmful patterns sometimes appear to produce no immediate consequence? Why do constructive patterns sometimes fail to produce visible results? The answer is that in the physical plane, there is always a gestation period between the sowing and the harvest. A seed of harmful cause planted today does not produce its tree of consequences tomorrow. The seed is underground. It is growing. The tree is coming. Similarly, a seed of constructive cause planted today does not produce its harvest immediately. The seed is underground. It is growing. The harvest is coming. Faith, genuine, functional faith, is precisely the capacity to trust the law during the time lag, to keep watering the seed when there is no visible growth above ground. The Kybalion makes a distinction that is worth carrying with you every day. Most human beings are what it calls pawns on the board of life. They are moved. They react. They are carried by the currents of other people's decisions, cultural conditioning, emotional weather, and circumstance. They are not initiating causes. They are experiencing effects and generating reactive causes that produce more of the same effects. The alternative, what the Kybalion calls the master, is the person who rises above the reactive plane and becomes a deliberate initiator of causes. They refuse to be an effect of their circumstances. They decide how to respond. They ask, not what is happening to me, but what am I generating? Not what did they do, but what am I causing? Slaves react. Architects initiate. To apply this law in the most practical possible sense, begin examining your daily patterns as cause-generating activity. Every thought you sustain consistently is a cause. Every belief you carry about what is possible for you is a cause. Every habitual emotional state is a cause. Every action you take or consistently avoid taking is a cause. The effects of these causes are your life. Change the causes, beginning with the most primary ones, the mental and emotional ones, and you change the effects. Not through hope, not through wishing. Through the reliable mechanical operation of a law that has never once failed to produce corresponding effects from corresponding causes. The seventh key, the law of generation. We have arrived at the law that breathes life into every principle that came before it. Without this one, the previous six are beautiful theory with no engine behind them. This is the law of creation itself, the law of universal fertility. The Kybalion declares it this way: generation is everywhere. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Generation manifests on all planes. Before you place this in any biological or social context, set those frameworks aside completely. We are not talking about gender roles. We are not talking about biology. We are talking about the fundamental mechanics of how anything new comes into existence, at every scale, in every domain, in every plane of reality. In this universe, nothing new emerges from a single source alone. Two complementary forces are always required to generate a third. You need positive and negative to produce electrical current. You need proton and electron to construct an atom. You need the generative and the receptive principle working in concert to produce anything genuinely new. And the extraordinary thing, the thing that most people walk through their entire lives without recognizing, is that you carry both of these principles within you right now. Regardless of your physical form, you are a complete creative apparatus. You possess within your own mind both the masculine principle and the feminine principle. You are, in the deepest sense, a spiritual androgyne. And this is your true creative nature. The reason your desires fail to materialize, the reason your projects seem to be born without life, the reason your visions stay perpetually on the horizon and never arrive, is almost always this. There is a disconnect, an imbalance, or an active conflict between these two inner forces. To give birth to a genuinely new reality, wealth, vitality, meaningful work, extraordinary relationships, you first have to restore the sacred balance within your own mind. You have to marry your inner forces. Let us break this down into something you can actually work with. Your mind is not a single unified thing. It is two forces in constant relationship. The masculine principle is your conscious mind, the part that thinks, analyzes, decides, and directs. It holds will. It is the sower. It is the architect who draws the blueprint. Its energy is direct, focused, electric. It says, I intend this. I choose this direction. The feminine principle is your subconscious mind, the part that feels, gestates, nurtures, and creates. It is the fertile ground. It is the womb in which ideas are received and developed. Its function is to receive the seed from the conscious mind and grow it into form. Its energy is magnetic, receptive, and deeply powerful. It says, let it become. I receive this as real. Creation, genuine creation, occurs when the masculine principle plants a clear, charged intention into the feminine principle through deep emotional engagement. When a thought held with clarity and conviction penetrates the subconscious through the medium of genuine feeling, a seed is planted. The subconscious then takes that seed, nurtures it in the darkness of its vast interior, gathers the energetic resources of the universe around it, and, after the appropriate time of gestation, delivers it into physical reality. That is the complete creative cycle. That is how it has always worked. That is how every genuine manifestation in human history has operated. Now understand why the law of attraction fails for so many people, and fails consistently. They use only the masculine principle. They stand before the mirror and declare their affirmations with willpower alone. I am wealthy. I am successful. I am healthy. They repeat the words with the conscious mind, while the subconscious, the feminine, the soil, remains either untouched or actively contradicting the declaration. Deep in the subconscious, the counter-belief is operating. You have never been wealthy. You do not have the capacity for this. This is not who you are. The masculine principle tries to push the seed through, but the soil is either dry or hostile. The seed lands on asphalt. It cannot take root. It dies without germinating. A thought without genuine emotional resonance is a thought without generative power. It has no creative force behind it. To create, you must seduce your own subconscious. Your conscious mind must not impose itself on the subconscious through brute repetition. It must present the intention, the vision of wealth, of health, of the desired reality, with such clarity and emotional vividness that the subconscious opens, receives, and embraces it. The thought must touch the feeling. When that contact occurs, when your mental clarity meets your genuine emotional engagement, something shifts. You feel it as a shiver of absolute certainty, a quiet click of recognition. That is the moment of conception. The seed has taken. Current culture suffers a specific imbalance in this domain. There is an excess of masculine energy, an obsession with doing, forcing, hustling, pushing. People are full of will and direction, but empty of genuine feeling. They try to force results into existence. They push harder when pushing produces no movement. They burn out spectacularly and then cannot understand why. This is sterile creativity. A father with no mother, pure law with no love, a blueprint with no living material to build with. The result is stress, exhaustion, and an outer success that feels hollow even when it arrives. On the opposite end, some people are pure feeling and intuition. They visualize beautifully. They feel inspired consistently, but they lack the directional will to channel that energy toward a specific outcome. They float, they dream, they produce fantasy rather than form. A mother with no father, receptive capacity with no direction to receive. The genuine creative master seeks the sacred balance between these two principles. They use the masculine to focus and direct. This is what I intend. This is the specific form I am calling into existence. They use the feminine to nurture and magnetize. I feel this as already real. I receive it as already mine. Inspired, directed action combined with deep, receptive faith. That is not a motivational slogan. That is the actual formula of creation operating through a human being who has learned to balance both principles. Every genuine creation has a gestation period that must be respected. If you plant bamboo, the seed can remain underground for years before breaking the surface. But during those years, it is developing an extraordinary root system. If you dig the seed up to check whether it is growing, you kill it. The same principle governs mental creation. Once you have successfully planted the intention in your subconscious, once the seed has been received by the fertile inner ground, the idea begins its development in the dark. During this period, your external circumstances may appear completely unchanged. The account balance looks the same. The opportunity has not yet arrived. The body has not yet shifted. Here, the impatient mind aborts the process. It announces that nothing is working, and in that announcement, it sends a destructive charge directly to the germinating seed. The law of generation requires that you respect the pregnancy. You do not demand the child on the first month. You know the child is developing. Your role is not to doubt, it is to nurture, to keep the faith warm, to protect the space. The birth is coming. Napoleon Hill, in his masterwork, Think and Grow Rich, devoted an entire chapter to the specific application of generative energy through what he called sexual transmutation. The creative energy of the body is the most powerful generative force available to a human being. It is the only energy in the natural world capable of producing biological life. Most people dissipate this energy in momentary physical release, allowing it to scatter without direction. The initiate understands that this energy can be consciously redirected. Instead of allowing it to discharge, you channel its intensity and fire toward your creative and professional ambitions. You impregnate your work with that same passion. The greatest creative geniuses in human history, Tesla, Da Vinci, many others, channeled extraordinary generative energy into their work rather than dispersing it. The result was a quality of creative output that seemed to transcend ordinary human capacity. When you redirect this torrent toward your deepest goals, your magnetism, your creative output, and your capacity to move people all intensify dramatically. Apply this law to wealth specifically. To generate lasting financial abundance, both inner principles must be engaged. The masculine of wealth: strategy, structure, clear direction, disciplined execution, logical planning. The feminine of wealth: intuition, creativity, genuine passion for the value you provide, the felt sense of abundance already present. If you have only the masculine, the business plan with no soul, the strategy with no genuine enthusiasm behind it, you build something technically functional but energetically inert. Clients and opportunities do not gravitate toward it. If you have only the feminine, the passion and the vision with no structural container, you have an expensive, chaotic hobby that never produces consistent results. You need both. You need the riverbank, firm, defined, directional, so that the water can flow with genuine power. Structure holding energy, direction channeling passion. That union is the only path to financial abundance that is both genuine and lasting. The most accessible technique for applying this law daily is what Neville Goddard called the state akin to sleep. In the moments just before you cross from wakefulness into sleep, when your body has become still but your awareness is still present, your conscious mind begins to release its grip. Its analyzing, filtering, criticizing function grows quiet. The subconscious, the feminine principle, moves toward full receptivity. This is the open door. In that state, introduce the image of your chosen reality. Not a long, elaborate visualization, but a brief, vivid, emotionally charged scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. A handshake of congratulation, the feeling of holding what you have been building toward, the emotional texture of your life as you intend it to be. Repeat that scene in a loop. Let the feeling saturate it, and drift into sleep from inside that feeling. Every night you do this, you are planting directly into the most receptive state your subconscious ever enters. By the mechanics of the law of generation, what is planted there must eventually grow into form. Every night is an opportunity for conception. Do not surrender it to worry. Surrender it to your vision. The eighth key, the law of attraction. We have reached the law that most people encounter first, the entry point into the world of metaphysics for an entire generation. It became famous in the early 2000s through a simplified formulation that swept through the cultural conversation like a wave. Ask, believe, receive. Vision boards appeared on bedroom ceilings. Affirmations were written on mirrors. And then, for millions of sincere people, the Ferrari did not arrive. The relationship did not materialize. The bank account remained unchanged. The law was dismissed as wishful thinking, as self-deception, as the comfort food of the spiritually naive. Is the law false? No. The law of attraction is as structurally real as gravity. But what was marketed to most people was a drastically simplified, almost childlike version of a genuinely complex cosmic mechanism. They were given the surface without the engine. They were given the destination without the map of how the vehicle actually operates. Today, we go beneath the surface. We examine the actual engineering, and you will understand not only why you have been attracting what you do not want, but precisely how to become a living magnet for the reality you intend. The foundational error, the single mistake that causes the entire system to malfunction for most people, is this: the law of attraction does not attract what you want. Mark this with everything you have. You can want abundance with every fiber of your being. You can cry for it, write it 1,000 times, paste it on every surface in your environment. If we attracted what we wanted, every person who has ever desperately desired wealth would be wealthy. The law is not listening to the content of your desire. The law declares something different and more precise. You attract what you are. You attract the vibratory identity you are currently occupying. When you say, "I want money," you are broadcasting the frequency of the person who does not have money. The word "want" confirms the absence of the object, and the law, being a faithful mirror of your frequency, returns to you more situations of wanting, more experiences of the thing being elsewhere. To attract abundance, you must stop wanting it and start inhabiting it vibrationally. You must become, in your consciousness, the person who already operates from a foundation of abundance, before the physical evidence confirms it. This seems paradoxical. How do you feel abundant when the account shows 0? That is precisely the work of the magician. The imagination is not decoration. It is your primary creative instrument. When you learn to generate the genuine feeling of abundance, security, and generosity within yourself, without requiring the external confirmation first, the law must respond. It hastens to match your vibratory identity with a corresponding physical reality. It does not give you what you ask for. It gives you what you are. At the base of your brain sits a structure called the reticular activating system. the RAS. Your nervous system receives millions of pieces of information every second. Processing all of it consciously would be impossible. The RAS is the filter. It deletes approximately 99% of incoming data and passes through only what it has been programmed to flag as important. How does it know what is important? You tell it through your sustained attention and your dominant beliefs. If your deep conviction is that opportunity is scarce and the world is fundamentally hostile, your RAS receives the instruction, confirm this. Filter out the evidence of abundance. Amplify the evidence of scarcity. You will then walk through a world filled with opportunity and genuinely not see it. Not because it is absent, because your filter has been set to render it invisible. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. When you reprogram your dominant beliefs and sustained attention, when you begin operating from the conviction that you are a genuine magnet for opportunities, the RAS recalibrates. Suddenly, things that were always present begin to register. The conversation that contains the key idea, the introduction that opens the unexpected door, the pattern in the data that reveals the path. It appears to be magic. It is the reliable operation of a biological system responding to new instructions. There is a missing element in the simplified version of this law that has caused enormous damage: the element of inspired action. The popular narrative created an impression that the process was purely passive. Visualize, feel, receive. That is not metaphysics. That is a fantasy of passivity dressed in spiritual language. We inhabit a physical universe. Energy requires physical channels through which to arrive. There are two fundamentally different categories of action. Forced action, the frantic, fear-driven doing that comes from the belief that if you stop moving for a moment, everything will collapse. This action repels because it broadcasts the frequency of desperation. It is the vibration of, "I do not trust the process." And inspired action, the movement that arises when the law has oriented your attention and intuition toward a specific opening, a sudden impulse to call someone, an idea that arrives complete and fully formed, a direction that feels less like work and more like play, like following a current rather than fighting one. The law of attraction does not eliminate the need for action. It optimizes action. Instead of striking rock in 100 wrong locations, it guides you through the channel of intuition to the precise point where the single strike reveals gold. When the impulse arrives, when you feel the genuine nudge, act on it within seconds. That decisive response is your physical declaration to the universe: I am ready to receive what is already prepared for me. The greatest single obstacle between you and everything the law is attempting to deliver is resistance. Desire, think of it as the accelerator. Resistance, the subconscious counter-beliefs operating beneath the surface, is the brake. Most people live with the accelerator pressed to the floor and the brake fully engaged simultaneously. They burn the engine. They exhaust themselves. and they interpret the absence of results as evidence that the law does not work, when in reality they have simply not yet addressed the handbrake. The speed of attraction is a direct function of your desire minus your resistance. If desire is enormous, but resistance is equally enormous, the result is stagnation accompanied by intense suffering. If desire is modest and resistance is near zero, small things manifest with startling speed. To accelerate the law, you do not need to want more intensely. You need to systematically release the beliefs that are contradicting your desire. Detachment, which is addressed more fully in the next key, plays a crucial role in the operation of this law. Need repels. This is perhaps the cruelest and most ironic feature of attraction mechanics. The more desperately you require a specific outcome for your sense of security or worthiness, the more you broadcast the contracted, suffocating frequency of need. Money retreats from panic. Love retreats from desperation. Opportunity retreats from grasping. Attraction operates most powerfully from the state of genuine preference. I would genuinely love this, and I am already complete without it. That is the vibration of a person who is magnetic. That is the vibration of someone who attracts because they are not clinging. The universe, in this precise sense, rewards the person who does not need it to. Gratitude is not a courtesy practice. It is the single most powerful vibratory tool available to you, and it functions as the great amplifier of the entire system. When you experience genuine gratitude, not performed gratitude, not the mechanical repetition of a list, but the actual felt sense of appreciation for what is present in your life right now, you are broadcasting the frequency of already having received. You are signaling to the field, I am in the state of the person who has been given abundantly, and the law responds to that signal by continuing to send. Gratitude is not about being satisfied with less than you desire. It is about anchoring yourself in the vibratory state of receipt, which is the exact state that keeps the channel of attraction wide open and flowing. One last technical piece. Your environment is not neutral. The people you spend consistent time with, the conversations you repeatedly participate in, the content you consume daily, all of it is either pulling your vibratory frequency upward or dragging it downward. There are people in your life who, when you share a vision with them, will respond with the energy of doubt, of why that won't work, of be realistic. Their doubt does not belong to you. But if you expose your emerging dream to it before it has sufficient root, the doubt can penetrate. Protect your vision the way you would protect a seedling in its earliest days. Keep it in the warmth and the dark. Let it develop root before you expose it to the elements. The results, when they arrive, will be undeniable and require no explanation. The ninth key, the law of oneness. Look at your hand. Move your fingers. Each one appears separate, distinct, independently named. But follow the line of any finger downward, you reach the palm, the wrist, the single hand from which all five emerge. The fingers are not separate things that happen to be near each other. They are expressions of a single, unified structure. Hurt one, and the entire hand registers the pain. Strengthen one, and the whole hand benefits. Now scale that image to its fullest possible dimension. You are a finger. The person sitting beside you is a finger. The one you call your enemy is a finger. The one you envy is a finger. We appear separate because we observe the spaces between us. We do not observe what the spaces are filled with. And the law of oneness declares, those spaces are not empty. They are saturated with a living, intelligent, connecting field, a divine matrix that unites every expression of consciousness in an indivisible whole. The sensation of separateness, of being a self-contained unit sealed inside a body, peering out at a world of other sealed units, competing for finite resources in a finite system, is the foundational illusion of human experience. It is the ego's most convincing performance. The ego is a biological tool evolved for physical navigation and survival. Its function is boundary making. I am here, you are there. My interests and your interests are distinct. This function has genuine utility at the level of physical survival. But it is not the deepest truth of what you are. At every other level of analysis, the boundary dissolves. At the atomic level, there is no edge to you. Your atoms are in continuous exchange with the air around you, with every surface you contact, with the biological fields of people in your vicinity. Every breath you draw contains atoms that have cycled through countless other living systems throughout the entire history of life on this planet. You are not a closed system. You are a temporary and specific organization of matter and energy that has been part of everything and will be part of everything again. Biologically, energetically, and at the quantum level, separation is a functional convenience, not a fundamental reality. Here is the dimension of this law that modern physics has confirmed in ways that continue to challenge every intuitive assumption about how space and separation work. When two particles interact and then separate, they remain connected regardless of the distance between them. A change in the state of one particle is reflected instantaneously in the corresponding particle, not at the speed of light, but apparently without any time delay at all. No signal traveling through conventional space connects them. They respond as though they are still in the same location, still part of the same event, because at a deeper level of reality, they are. This phenomenon, called quantum entanglement, has been confirmed experimentally and is now one of the foundational facts of modern physics. If the universe originated from a single point, a single event in which all matter and energy that now exists was compressed into one unified state, then every particle that now exists was, at that moment, in direct contact with every other particle. The entanglement established at that origin point has never been broken. It has simply been stretched across the expanding dimensions of space-time. Every atom in your body is quantumly entangled with every atom in the farthest observable reaches of the universe. You are not a passive observer of a separate reality. You are an active participant in a web of connection that extends without boundary in every direction. Your consciousness, the quality of your awareness, the nature of your thoughts, the frequency of your emotional life, is not contained within your skull. It sends genuine waves into the total field. It influences at a level too subtle for ordinary perception, but too fundamental to ignore, the reality that surrounds you. This law transforms the entire architecture of ethics, and does so not through moral prescription, but through pure intelligence. If we are all genuinely, structurally one, then harming another is not merely unkind, it is self-inflicted. If I take from you, I believe I have gained and you have lost. My ego celebrates the arithmetic, but according to the law of oneness, I have stolen from another portion of myself. I have introduced the vibration of theft and violation into the unified field of which I am a part. That vibration must return to its source, not as punishment from an external judge, but as the mechanical return of a wave to the shore that generated it. The golden rule is not moral advice. It is a description of how reality actually operates. What you direct toward others, you direct toward a version of yourself in delayed time. The judgment you cast onto another becomes the judgment that limits your own expansion. The envy you feel toward another's success is the barrier you erect against your own. You are not punishing them, you are closing your own door. Conversely, and this is the dimension of this law that should genuinely excite you, when you bless someone, you bless yourself. When you contribute to another's rise, you rise. Not metaphorically, energetically, and causally. A field that carries the vibration of genuine generosity, of willing others well, of celebrating rather than resenting the success of others. That field is one of the most powerful attractors of abundance available to a human being. The intelligent pursuit of your own flourishing and the genuine encouragement of others' flourishing are not in tension with each other. They are the same movement in the same direction. The competitive worldview, the belief that your gain requires another's loss, that the market is a finite pie being divided among rivals, is the worldview of separation. It is the ego's operating system applied to economics and relationships. The law of oneness offers a different operating system entirely, the creative worldview. Value is not finite. The capacity for human beings to create genuine value, to solve problems, to produce beauty, to generate insight, to build things that did not exist before, is not a fixed quantity being redistributed. It grows. When you light your candle from mine, I do not lose fire. The total amount of light in the room has increased. When you build genuine value in the world, the space available for everyone else's value does not shrink. It expands. Scarcity is a feature of the separation mindset. Abundance is a feature of the oneness mindset. And the mindset you operate from determines with extraordinary reliability which world you inhabit. The healing implication of this law for human relationships is among its most practically powerful dimensions. The person who wounded you, the one you carry the weight of, the one whose actions still occupy space in your inner life long after the events themselves, is, at the deepest level, another version of you moving through a different configuration of experiences. This is not a statement designed to minimize what occurred or to suggest that harmful behavior deserves no consequence.
It is a statement about perception. When you are capable of recognizing that the person who caused pain was acting from their own contracted, frightened,
wounded state, when you can see the suffering behind the harm, something in the quality of your experience of it shifts. You move from a posture of personalized injury to one of broader understanding. Forgiveness, which is addressed in the final key, becomes not a heroic act of moral superiority, but the natural consequence of genuinely seeing what you are looking at. There is a phenomenon sometimes called the 100th monkey effect. The observation across multiple field studies that when a sufficient number of individuals within a group learn a new behavior or adopt a new understanding, the knowledge appears to propagate through the group beyond what direct physical contact can account for. Whether this specific phenomenon holds up to the most rigorous scrutiny is a matter of ongoing discussion, but the principle it points toward is consistent with everything the law of oneness implies. Consciousness is not fully private. The inner work you do, the healing of your own wounds, the elevation of your own awareness, the raising of your own frequency, does not stay contained within you. It propagates. It becomes more accessible to those around you and, through the web of connection, potentially beyond. Your personal transformation is not a selfish act. It is your most meaningful contribution to the collective. By becoming more of what you are capable of being, you make it fractionally easier for everyone connected to you to do the same. You are not alone in this. You have never been alone in this. The universe is not a cold, indifferent system that you must fight for your share of. It is the medium in which you exist, the ocean in which you are not merely a drop, but a living, dynamic expression of the whole. When you genuinely absorb this, not as a concept to hold, but as a reality to inhabit, the chronic anxiety of survival begins to soften. The frantic grasping begins to ease. You begin to operate from a foundation of genuine sufficiency, not because your circumstances have changed, but because your perception of what you are and where you stand has shifted at the root. The 10th key, the law of assumption. Forget everything you have been told about asking the universe, sending requests into the field, and waiting for the right conditions to align. Those frameworks share a common flaw. They imply distance. They suggest that what you desire is out there somewhere, separate from you, and that you must earn your way toward it. That is the long road. The road of the perpetual seeker who always approaches but never arrives. There is a shorter path, known to kings, prophets, and a handful of genuine mystics throughout history. Not because it requires supernatural gifts, but because it requires something most people simply refuse to do. It requires the audacity to claim the end before the beginning has been completed. This is the law of assumption, articulated most completely by the mystic Neville Goddard, though its roots reach into every authentic wisdom tradition that has ever existed. Its core statement is radical. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. This law does not ask you to be realistic. It asks you to be a creator, to establish the reality in consciousness before it appears in form, because form always follows consciousness. To assume means to internally appropriate a state of being before the physical confirmation exists, to live from the end rather than toward it. Most people live in perpetual hope. I hope that one day, I wish it would happen. But hope contains a hidden poison. No one hopes for what they already possess. The state of hoping is a continuous declaration of absence. As long as you sustain the hoping, you sustain the vibratory signature of the thing not being here. The law of assumption requires a complete relocation of your inner identity. You stop being the person who wants the life, and you become the person who has it. You move from I want to be to I am. Everything you attach to the words I am becomes a command executed with extraordinary precision by the universal creative machinery. The critical technical distinction is this: thinking of your desire versus thinking from it. Thinking of your desire means holding it at a distance, like someone looking through a shop window. Separation is built into the structure of the experience. Thinking from your desire means getting inside it. You are no longer looking at the house. You are standing in its kitchen, looking out through its windows. When you genuinely shift from thinking of to thinking from, you feel a quiet release, a settling, a sense of it being done. That is the confirmation that the assumption has been genuinely inhabited. The most effective technique for planting the assumption is the state akin to sleep, that hypnagogic threshold just before you cross into sleep, when your analytical mind releases its grip and your subconscious moves toward full receptivity. Choose a brief scene implying your desire is already fulfilled, not the process, the end. Repeat it in a slow, feeling-rich loop. Drift into sleep from inside that feeling. Every night you do this, you are writing new instructions directly onto the subconscious in its most open state. By the mechanics of this law, what is consistently planted there must harden into the conditions of your waking life. When the physical reality has not yet moved, the single answer is persist. Matter has inertia. A large ship does not change direction the instant the rudder moves. Do not interpret the lag as failure. Be unreasonably committed to your inner knowing. That divine stubbornness, held long enough, is what every wisdom tradition has called faith. And faith, in this precise technical sense, is the currency with which reality is rewritten. The 11th key, the law of detachment. Welcome to the most elegant paradox in all of metaphysics. You have learned to think powerfully, to assume boldly, to plant seeds with precision and feeling. And now comes the law that appears to contradict everything before it. The law that says, the tighter you grip your dream, the more certainly you strangle it. The law of detachment declares, to genuinely acquire anything, you must release your attachment to it. Do not surrender the intention. Do not surrender the desire. Surrender your insistence on controlling the result. Desperate need repels. Relaxed trust attracts. Picture a handful of dry sand in your open palm. The sand rests there. You have it. The moment fear causes you to close your fist, the sand exits through your fingers. The harder you squeeze, the faster you lose. This is what attachment does to your desires. You want the outcome so intensely, fear its absence so acutely, that you squeeze the possibility out of it. Attachment broadcasts the frequency of someone who does not trust the delivery. And that contracted, desperate vibration is among the most powerful repellents in the energetic universe. The philosopher Aldous Huxley identified what he called the law of reversed effort. When will and imagination conflict, imagination wins. The harder you consciously strive with brute willpower, the stronger the counterforce of your deeper imagination resists the outcome. Consider learning to float in water. Fighting the water causes you to sink. Relaxing allows the water to support you. Excessive effort in manifestation is the energetic equivalent of thrashing. It is proof that on some level you do not yet believe. If you genuinely knew the check was already in the mail, you would not be suffering at the door. You would be living your life. Detachment is not apathy. Apathy is the absence of desire entirely, a flat, deflated state carrying one of the lowest available frequencies. Detachment is the coexistence of fired desire and genuine inner peace simultaneously. It is the archer who has aimed with total precision, drawn the bow with full power, cares deeply about the mark, and then releases the arrow completely. If the archer never releases, the arrow never flies. Your role is the what. The universe's role is the how and the when. Surrender the details to an intelligence that has the panoramic view you do not. The practical act of surrender is this: write your intention on paper, read it with full emotional presence, then burn it. That physical act communicates to your subconscious, which understands ritual, that the chapter of striving is complete. It is submitted. From that point, every time anxious checking returns, redirect it with one inner statement: it is already in process. I do not dig up planted seeds. The 12th key, the law of forgiveness and emptying. You now hold 11 extraordinary keys, and yet something may still feel immovable. A weight that persists despite the knowledge. A subtle break that no amount of visualization fully releases. Almost certainly, that weight has a name: resentment or guilt. And this 12th key, the most commonly skipped, the most underestimated, may be the most structurally critical of all. Its operating principle is this: empty space must be created before it can be filled. You cannot pour new wine into a vessel already full of something old. A heart sealed by resentment is a closed fist. A closed fist cannot receive anything new. This is not a lesson in morality. This is fluid mechanics. Resentment is a blockage, cholesterol in the arterial system of your creative life, stones wedged in the pipe through which abundance attempts to flow. The question is not whether the person who caused your pain deserves release. The question is whether you deserve release. Because the resentment lives in you, in your body, your nervous system, the cellular tension of a story you keep carrying. It is costing you energy every single day. When you bring someone who wronged you into your mind, who feels the anger? You. Who saturates their bloodstream with stress hormones? You. The other person is likely sleeping undisturbed. Your hatred does not reach them. It circulates in your own system, looking for somewhere to land. Long-term resentment has documented effects on physiological function over time. This is not mystical. It is the direct physical cost of keeping a toxic emotional loop running in your body. Forgiving does not mean declaring what happened acceptable. It means, I refuse to keep taking this poison. I choose myself. It is radical, intelligent self-preservation. Guilt, resentment directed inward at yourself, is the most dangerous and most overlooked blockage of all. Many people apply every other principle with genuine dedication and remain stuck. The answer is often here. Deep in the subconscious, a program runs, I have done wrong. I do not deserve what I am trying to build. And the faithful subconscious executes that program, pushing abundance away, sabotaging success, undermining health, not from external opposition, but from the inside. You must apply forgiveness to yourself with the same depth you would apply it to another. One practical technique: write without censorship to whoever caused the pain or to yourself. Let the anger and grief come out completely. Then write, today I choose myself over this. I release you. I withdraw my energy from this bond. Burn the letter. Watch the words turn to ash. The subconscious understands ritual. The chapter closes in a way that deciding alone cannot achieve. The proof of genuine forgiveness is not in the words, it is in the feeling. When you can bring that person's name to mind and feel genuine indifference, not suppressed anger, not performed neutrality, but actual emotional blankness, the way you feel thinking about a chair, the work is complete. The bond is severed. Your energy has returned to you entirely. The highest form of this law is gratitude for the experience itself, the genuine recognition that the pain which cut you deepest also produced your deepest growth. When you arrive at the place where you can say, and truly mean it, thank you for what this made me. The alchemy is finished. You are no longer defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you built from it. Conclusion: the awakening of the operator. You have reached the end of the map, but the map is not the territory. These 12 keys are not intellectual trophies. They are instruments. A tool that is never used is indistinguishable from a tool that does not exist. You stayed until the end. Most people left within the first minutes, looking for shortcuts that require no inner change. They are still searching. You are here because something in you recognized that a different quality of engagement with this life is possible, and that you are ready for it. Do not try to apply all 12 laws simultaneously. Choose the one that felt most like recognition rather than new information, because genuine wisdom always feels like remembering. Take that single law and for the next 30 days Make it the lens through which you interpret your daily experience. Apply it in the smallest available laboratory. Observe what happens. When you see the first result, and you will, something will shift that no amount of listening can produce in advance. A piece of theory will become lived knowledge. And lived knowledge is a different substance entirely. It is gnosis. In that moment, your relationship with your own life changes permanently, because you will have confirmed through direct experience that you are not a passenger in this existence. You are the operator. You have always been the operator. You were simply running the machine without reading the manual. Now you have read it. The only question remaining is the one that has always been the only question. What do you choose? Not one day, not when conditions feel safer. Now, in this precise moment, the quantum field of your life is holding its full spectrum of possibility. The observer, you, is about to decide what it becomes. Choose consciously. Choose from the knowing of who you actually are. This has been MindRise Audiobooks. It has been a genuine honor. The journey from here belongs entirely to you. Go and make your life the evidence.